After all the things that we have discussed, now is the time for HTML manipulation. Finally, we are going to do some form of interactivity using HTML and JavaScript. To start, let's add additional HTML elements in our example. So let's remove everything for now. Let's remove everything so that we go to a clean slate. And then let's add for now 4 different divs. Let's have a class. Let's say this is red. Then this is I put in here red. This is blue. This is green. And this is yellow. Now let's add some bit of style. So for red, we have color white, which is with the background color of, let me check, let's have a red of the hex color to be this one. And then for the blue is you want to also have a color white. And the blue would be this one. I have there. The yellow and also the green. Again, for green, we'll have, I'll just copy this, then just change the setup here. Then the yellow is, I'll also copy this, then get the value for yellow. So I have a different screen. And then let's add some form of like, let's say it's a box. A box would be has a margin of, let's say, 12 pixels, height of 50 pixels, and a width of 50 pixels. And let's just add a box here. You can also add an ID, red box, and this one, blue box. Let's just have it right now here, and let's see. As you can see, this will show up. Let's add some padding and increase the size to 150. And you can see that it has now these colors. Now to access it in JavaScript, what we could do is, let's say we want to access red box. What we could do is use the document object and do a get element by ID, which is using the ID that we have said, and red box, and let's say boxes. If we want to get all of the boxes, that I mean with the class box, all the elements that has the class box, what we can do is document that get elements by class name, box. So let's show it here. We do this, can see that we are able to reference the red box here. So in the sources, I click on here. This is the one that printed this one, and if I hover on the DevTools, it highlights on the browser itself. And as you can see, this is an HTML collection. If I hover on each of these, it actually is a collection of HTML elements that are has a box class name. Now the thing is, this is very much sort of unintuitive, meaning you'll need to know query element by ID and get elements by class name. But because jQuery came along and the browser vendors took note of that advancement of making sure that it's easier for developers to create or manipulate JavaScript, or I manipulate HTML using JavaScript. They created this one, which is query selector, and in using like if I add red box here and then say that this is font weight bold, and we also do this. So instead of this one, we do this. Yeah, it's still able to see red box this point instead of get element by ID. And as for get elements by class name, although there would be a difference. If we use only query selector box, if we use only query selector, we get only one instance. But if we use query selector all, we get all of the instances. So that is how we are able to reference now the documents, the elements that we are seeing here. Another thing that we can do is to create new elements using JavaScript and append it to another element. So we can also add that element before or a particular element or even after it. So let's try it out. Let's say I want to create a span, which is new document create element, which is a span. And then in the span, the inner HTML is hello world. Let's remove the boxes first. And then red box, append, span. So as you can see here, oops. Let's see. Oops. There should be no new. Sorry about that. So as you can see, there is a hello world inside. If we create a paragraph, it becomes a paragraph, as you can see, red, and then there's the hello world paragraph. We can also prepend. If we do a prepend, we will be able to prepend it on the first element here. So there's the prepend, and so on and so forth. So yeah, Now let's add some more interactivity. For interactivity, let's remove all the elements that we are seeing here. So let's just remove everything else. Let's leave out the red one. And let's also add a button. So click me. And then we'll remove this one for now. So if we have this one, let's add additional styles for the red box, which is I'll remove the hello world for now on this one, and let's add position absolute with the top 0px and left 0px. That means it will show up here with the click me right above it. Let's have the button. Let's have the red box 50px top, so it will show up in here. Okay, so now that we have removed all the scripts, we can add references to the objects that we have made. And let's do this right now. So we have a box, which is the red box. Document dot query selector, and that's the red box that we have. And then I'm just going to check it again. We have the button. I'll just add an ID here, just the button, and let's get the button as well. So button is equals to document query selector button. So given this, what we need to do is to add event listeners. So to add event listeners, we can do this. I'm just going to add the usual event listeners that we have. So for button, add event listeners, click. That's one of the things. Then we use arrow function. So we have this event. We just print out the event. For the red box, what I want to have is the mouse over event. So I'm just going to copy paste this whole thing so that it would be easier. And then, well, actually, you could just copy paste this whole setup, and I'm just going to change this. Let's have like mouse over, and then this is mouse out. This one is a click event. I also want to have, so we have a mouse over, mouse out, mouse move, and mouse down. And then mouse up, and then we just have a key down, and lastly is key up. So let's test it out, what it will show on our screen. So if I click on this one, there's the click event, which is a mouse event. As you can see, if I enter my mouse over the red box, there's the mouse over, there's a mouse move and mouse out. If I click on it, there's a mouse down and mouse up. Of course, I don't have the key here, so let's add a new HTML, which let's say we'll add an input ID input, and instead of using the red box, we'll have input is equals to document.query selector input, and we'll just add these things here. So refresh, then we'll just say, so there's like the key down and key up for this one. Okay, so now that we have done these things, of course, these are callbacks, but because the events are happening anytime, it's not only a one-time event, and we cannot change them into promises. So what we can do is to add additional functionality. That means if I let's say if I click this one, the button, if I click the button, I would change the item, or I mean the red box. So red box class list. So we can sort of change the class itself. So you can replace the red with green. So if, let's say, red box class list that has, is it has? Contains red, we will do this. Else, if we have a green one, for now let's do replacements from green back to red. So it's like really a toggle. So if I refresh this again and I click on this one, now we can change colors. Oh, I don't have a video actually, so I'll turn on the video. Ta-da! Okay, so we have this in this setup. So now that we have it here, we can also add like additional information. So let's say in the red box, what I wanted to have is, if it's mouse down, red box set attribute, let's say clicked. So I'm setting an attribute with with no value, and if there's a mouse up, red box remove attribute clicked. So let's test it out this way. So let's see console. No, I mean this one. So red box, I refresh it. If I click on this, there's a click attribute. There's a click attribute on the this one, And if I release my click, we don't have that clicked button. Oh, I mean click attribute. Now, if I remove this and this one, I also remove this. If redbox.set it has attribute clicked, what we can do is redbox itself style. We get the event. So what can we see with the event itself? So let's see. So again, it's clear. If I move the mouse, we can see the mouse event. And let's see what we have. Let's try using page X and page Y. So if I do this, fonts page X and page Y is equals to event, and what I do is redbox dot style dot top is equals to page Y px, and left is equals to page X px. So let's try it out. Let's just add, let's say 10, or I mean this one. So if I click, now it's sort of at the center. Let's have it again like in 50. If I click on it again, it's now in the center. And if I release it, it's not in there. I mean, yeah, it's not in the screen. So effectively, we have created some sort of a drag and drop using this one, but it's, of course, it's not really that smooth. There are still something that is needed to make it smooth and more robust, but you get the idea. Yeah, in essence, I'm just using mouse down and mouse up, and if there's a mouse move, that is if there's an attribute click, which you can see here. If I click on it, it means it's being dragged. Then we eventually is able to do this. Now the other thing is for key down, for text, let's add some form of, we can use the button itself. What can we see here? When there's a key down, we can see the key that was used. So let's say button.inner.html is equals to button.inner.html plus the event let's just use event key. And so if we do this, see that it's sort of, I'm able to change the letters depending. So of course I also am able to like do backspace and control. So if I say control, so in essence I can change the information on another div given that I'm having a key down and up. So yeah, that's one most of the ways that we can add interactivity. So okay, sorry, it's really hot here as of the moment while I'm recording. Anyway, now that we are done on that, let's move to form. So let's delete everything here. Oops, not this one. That's too much. Let's delete everything for now. All the styles that we have set up and the div as well. Now take note of this button. It's just an ordinary button, but on our next example, if we are using forms, so let's say this is a form body. Now if we do this, the button itself is a little bit different. The button's behavior is a little bit different. So for now, we will not use JavaScript. I'm just going to show you the power of this form without JavaScript. So let's add some form of type. So let's just say input group, because I just want to make it into a group. And we have an input. Now the input usually is of a text, as we have seen before. Without the default would always be type text. So I'm just going to put it here for setup. And usually if we're going to use input, we can use like the name and the ID. So and usually the name and ID would have the same value usually. The thing is, it makes the value of the input to be put in the variable called name. So that is what I want to say. Okay, and then there's the label. Let's say I want the label to be, I want to say that this is supposed to be a name, and we put in the value of the ID here, representing that this label is for this input. Now let's say we want to make sure that this is required. So we want to put the attribute required here, and we can add a placeholder. Let's say put your name here. So if we check on the browser, this is what you see, and the placeholder is sort of deleted if we put some kind of information here. Now let's add an additional input. So I'm just going to copy this and paste it here. Let's say it's a list attribute. So this is let's say we want to show if browser being used, and instead it's still a text, and I'm just going to say browser. Oops. Type your browser, but I would add a list called browser list. And if I do that, I can have a data list ID browser list, and inside it is option value Chrome. Let's say this is for Chrome, and this is for Firefox. I'm typing the wrong keys as of the moment, and we say Edge. And Safari. So let's try it out. Oh, let me check if we need this, but yeah. So refresh. As you can see, so actually we can just leave out the value. So in essence, we are able to create some form of like autocomplete. Yep. So if I do this, that's what's happening. Let's add some form of styles for our input group, where we want to have some form of margin 12px. Yep, and makes it a little bit more bearable in essence. Now that we have that, let's have some form of class as well. Input. And then what we can also add is telephone. So we'll remove this, and instead of like the type is text, we have type tel. Now this is useful for use phone. Easier to have it as one word. Phone number, and the placeholder is phone number. This is required. Now of course, if you type in your phone, you can still have this. The problem is it's not really a phone number, so what we can do is we put in a pattern. Pattern is uses in essence it uses regular expressions. So let's just put regular expressions. That is let's say let me check my regular expression on my notes. So for this one, we want to have a pattern. We can do this, and let's see if it works. So I added a submit so that it will sort of check if our code is correct. So let's see. Let's see if I did 45, it should match the requested format. So if I did 501 1 2 3 4, and it says here that it's correct. Again, if I do this, it will request for a right format 3 4. Now the error doesn't show up, and if I click on it, it will work now. That's one of the things that we can do with pattern and regular expressions. What it does is for this one, it checks if there's a plus. We can have a pattern that has a plus or no plus, and then for a character that is open exclamation point, open parenthesis, we can check if there's an open parenthesis or not. And then for 0 to 9, we can say that any like 0 to any number, and then closing parenthesis, and then there's 0 to 9 that is exactly 3 numbers, and there's a space or dash if we want to have one, and 0 to 9 with exactly 4 characters. So we can sort of do that here, or that's the pattern that is expected for this one. Now another thing that we can add is, let me check, what can we add? Now if we want to add like checking for email, so let's do this. This is supposed to be the email, sorry about that. Tell email, oops, and there's no need for the pattern here. So if we do this, well, of course this is going to be checked again. Nope, we should Chrome, or maybe let's this time Firefox. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, because the email doesn't have like the @ sign and the usual .com, then or the domain, then it will not work out. So that's how we can check if it's a type of an email. The string is an email without using the pattern. There's also let's see what we can use here. We can also have a password. Let's have that password, type password, and if we type on it, we don't see the characters. So now that we have the password, what can we also put? Number. So let's say this is for age. No, should be a number. And let's say we have a minimum. Do we have, yeah, minimum 0, maximum let's say 150. So if we do this, we have counters, and if we do like 150, that's the maximum that we can get. So 160 is, let's just try it out. What will happen? Submit, the value must be less than or equal to 150. So we have another validation here. What can we still do aside from numbers? You can also have default. So let's say default a value here, which is like maybe 18. And if we refresh, there's the 18 value here. Now I want to also have like birthday. So birthday here. Now instead of having it as an age or as a text, we put in date. And again, it's also required. Now if I click on it, it has a date date picker that is inherently part of the browser already. But caveat, Safari doesn't, or yeah, Safari doesn't support this one, which sucks. The next is what can we also use? Yeah, we want to like have a gender. So gender, oh no, this is for male. This is where we have a differentiation, where the variable would be the so we want to have a radio button, a value itself, male, and the ID is also the same. There is no need for placeholder and required here. So let's see. Let's have a BR. This one. This should be male. So let's add some form of span and BR. This is female. And the last is, for now, is non-binary. Well, actually, we also want to put this here. What's that again? Non-disclosure. And if we check this out, we can click on the radio button. That means they are of the same group. The thing is, we can click also on the word, and because we are able to put in the 4, it knows that it is referring to this input because of the ID. So take note of that as well. Now, after radio buttons, we can also have like, let's say, what another example we can think of? Likes, and let's say sports. So we have sports here, games, and what's that again? Books, studying, now instead of using the type radio, we use checkbox. And this is using likes. Oops. Same variable name for everything. And so we do this again and again. You can do checkbox. We can also add, let's say, checked to make it already default as checked. Now you can also add, let's copy this one. And let's put, let's say, what can we do here? Option. So let's have it as option. And instead of, we use a different one. Select ID option. And much like the one in the data list, can have option 1. Oops. Oh. 2, 3, and 4. So click on it. You can see, oops, this is below the button. I should put it here. So again, a drop box or a select drop box. Now we have added the type button here, but it becomes automatically a type submit. So that's the default for this one. If we have a button outside, like the one that we say click me, this is the default is type button. So any button that doesn't have a type inside a form would have a type of submit. So let's have like button type, what's this again? Reset. So if we do this, and let's say I add something here, and I click on reset, it resets the whole thing from the original value. Now, if I'm going to like put it here, usually if I do this and then I submit, what happens in this part is we can see the URL having the values that I put, especially the password, which is very bad. The thing with forms is that the default with forms when you submit is the method is always get, and even if we put it on, like the action is, let's say we put it on http://bin.org/anything, so you need internet to make this happen, and then I submit. What happens is these are the arguments that we can see, which is again in the browser URL, and it's really bad. So what we can do is use post. This one, we go back, refresh, submit. If I submit it, what will happen? So as you can see, never. So as you can see here, the form would have the data instead of the args. You can see that there's no data in the URL, but it got the information from the system. So without JavaScript, we can actually add the information, but the problem here on out is that the whole thing changes its page. So we'll need JavaScript to make sure that when we submit the whole thing, it doesn't go to a different page. So let's do it right now. Let's say form. So this is the ID. Const form is equals to document.query selector form body, and then we add an event listener for submit, and then we do the event. Now to prevent it from changing the page, we use prevent default. And then to get the values, let's create a body which will have, let's say, so we get the items from our form. So let's do it right now. We have it named here, so we get the name, likes, and we should have a name here for option, which is option. Now because if we do this, let's just name for now. Let's refresh, and if we submit, the actual thing that we get is actually this one, the input itself. So to get the value, we want to have body here, and name is name that value, browser is browser dot value, phone is phone dot value, email is email dot value, password is password dot value, age is age dot value, birthday is birthday dot value, gender is gender dot value, likes is likes dot value, and option is option dot value. So if we do this again, console.log body, free, submit, we get the whole information. Okay, likes doesn't have the value itself, even if I've checked. So how do we get the value for likes? What we can do is const if node checked array likes dot push node dot value. So let's try it out. And then we submit, we check it again, and we can see that there's the likes now. What we can do about this one is to send it, because we want to make it an async, so that we can use a wait fetch to http colon slash we get it from the form dot action, because we know that the action is the one that we have put here, the URL, this one. And then method is equals to form dot method. Body is JSON dot stringify body. And what can we do about this one? So let's add some form of code below. Let's have it this one, and then at the end, okay, my dog is like saying something. Code. Let's add some. Yep. So we have response, and then we want to get the text. So text is equals to await response dot text, and we want to have it on our inner HTML text. So let's try it out for the last time. And 3, we submit it, and you can see that we are able to print the text or the response in the code. And that's how you create some form of interactivity using forms and JavaScript. And I hope you have learned something in this exercise.